Welcome to the second episode of Predestined Purpose. I want to say thank you for all of the support that you guys have provided me over the last few weeks. In today's episode, we will be discussing the second half of my diagnosis story, the flooding in my home, and the myriad of other things that my illness had affected prior to this point. Today, I have my dad here, and we're going to be talking about everything that happened since he was heavily involved in those parts of the story. Start off by talking about the flooding, new ducting, new roof, and new gutters, and I just want to see what my dad's perspective was at the time of me being diagnosed with EDS. My dad and I had been renovating my home, which, as you might expect, was expensive. As you heard in the last episode, I had just been diagnosed with EDS. Dad, can you talk about what that was like when you found out I was diagnosed?
Well, I didn't quite understand what it was. Mom had kind of shared certain things that she had with her family and certain things, how the fingers and joints would bend back. And I just kind of thought it was something similar to being double jointed. And so I didn't quite understand all of the other things with the organs and the pain and all of that until we went and saw the doctor down south.
Yeah, so just a quick note about that. EDS can affect all parts of your body, your organs, basically anything that has tissue or tendons or anything like that. And so it can affect more than just the joints, though that is a big majority of it. So fast forward to coming home to find flooding in my bedroom and bathroom. I immediately called my dad and I let him know. Dad, can you talk a little bit about what that was like getting the call? I was frantic, telling you there's flooding in my bathroom to my bedroom. How did you feel?
Well, it didn't come at a good time. Nothing ever seems to come at a good time. So it was just a surprise. I didn't know what the problem was. You were kind of off the chart panicking. So first thing was just kind of calm you down and just tell you it's not a big deal. We'll take care of it. Although in my mind I was thinking, uh-oh, now what? And then to see the extent of it, I thought that maybe when I came over here it was just going to be something really basic, but it ended up being a lot more than I had anticipated.
Yeah. I think when I called you, I was obviously, like I said, frantic, and I didn't know what to do because it's like, okay, I'm taking care of this home and I'm trying to figure out how to fix these things. Thankfully, the flooding had stopped, but I just kind of like threw towels everywhere and put on fans and did what I could, but it wasn't helping. And when I noticed it went to my bedroom, it brought me back to when I lived in LA and there was flooding in that room. And it was like, okay, what do I do? So obviously, like, you came over and the insurance came out and they brought that huge machine. And that was overwhelming as well because I think they said they wanted to leave it for 72 hours or something. It was a large machine and it was really loud. So that it just ran 24/7 for those 72 hours, meaning, through the day and the night. There was no breaks in between. And that was hard to sleep through. But also it was just like, wait, okay, they have to do this. And then after that, they have to come back and see if there was any issues that they need to test for. So that was overwhelming. But you asked me to leave at the time. You're like, hey, like, you need to go. I think you told me to go see mom or something. And I was curious, like, why did you have me leave before they explained the details, and what exactly did they tell you?
Well, I had you leave because I knew that would be more pressure, because the more that you heard, the more questions you would have. And I was going to handle it anyway. And And I knew that they were going to have to tear the walls out and things like that, and that would have just panicked you more. And then not only having to calm you down, I'd have to deal with the work as well. And so that's why I wanted you to leave first off, and then also so you could calm down a little bit.
Yeah, so just a little bit of a backstory. We find out they need to come and test for asbestos. Somebody comes out. Thankfully, at the time, I was working remotely. But they came out, and they came out at really random times. They would just show up here. And so if I was working at a coffee shop or something like that, I would have to just leave immediately and figure out, okay, let me hurry up. So for the amount of time where they were trying to figure things out, I just decided, okay, I'm going to work fully from home right now. But it was a little frustrating because they would say, okay, we're coming. And then I wouldn't see them for like hours, or they say, oh, never mind, we're not coming today. But it was just a little bit hard at the time. But when they did test and it was positive for asbestos, that was overwhelming because it meant that they needed to rip out the walls up to like 2 inches or something.
No, 2 feet.
Oh, 2 feet. Oh, yeah. Duh. More than that. Yeah, 2 feet all through that wall in my bedroom and the bathroom walls. And thankfully, what was a blessing out of this, and so God's providence, is a thought that I would have in my head every day when I would brush my teeth was, this sink is disgusting. This vanity is disgusting. I don't like using this. But I wouldn't say it out loud because I didn't want to be ungrateful. And I would just immediately kind of counteract the thoughts of saying, okay, the Lord provided me with this home. I need to be grateful for this. At least I have a sink. At least I have a vanity. At least I have something. But it was just really dirty. And so I would have never been able to afford this. And so just this, through providence, the flooding happening and just me being able to get a new vanity through that. But around the same time, as you know, Dad, I was told that I needed new ducting because there was, what was it? It was the, oh my gosh, I can't think of what's in ducting.
Insulation.
Yeah, the insulation was blowing into the air and that I needed to get it replaced. And I had that cleaned, and because of that, it kind of pulled on it. They were not going to take care of that, but because it was a older home, so we had to figure that out at the time, and it was just a lot going on at once. Okay, the bathroom, I needed to pay a certain amount of money before the insurance paid, and then have to pay for this ducting, and I just felt extremely, extremely burdened, even though the Lord had provided every other time. It was just a lot going on at once. I had to move out of my bedroom into the spare bedroom, and then just basically all the stuff in my bedroom had to be moved out into the hallway, the living room, it was just spread out everywhere, and my stuff was just it was pure chaos, so I couldn't really have anybody over here at the time. But I was curious to know what your thoughts were when that was added to the mix of things, and you were just seemed to be calm through it all, and I'd love to know if that's how it was in your head as well.
Well, it was a little frustrating because I had just finished the floor, just finished painting the cabinets and the walls, and so I just said finish that bathroom, and all the floors were new in the bedroom that it seeped into, so that all of that was a little bit frustrating, but it was okay because I wasn't satisfied with the cabinets anyways, and so I kind of saw the blessing and the opportunity that God provided at the very beginning. So I wasn't panicked because we didn't choose to get the new cabinet because it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And that vanity itself was pretty expensive. So not only did we get that, we got the new countertop, sinks, and faucets out of all of that.
Yeah.
With only the deductible out of pocket. So, but I mean, there's been so much more that's happened in our lives that this was minor. So it's never been good or done any. We haven't benefited from panicking or worrying about things. So that's one of the reasons I didn't really want you involved in that part of it.
Yeah.
But it all worked out great. So you could see that God blessed you.
Yeah. And then, as you know, this was the time I've been praying for a new roommate. And then all of a sudden I don't know if it was a call or a text from someone I knew a little bit. And we had a lot of mutual friends, and just saying, hey, I have a friend moving in town. She needs a place to live. Are you still looking for a roommate? I said, yeah. Okay, let's meet. And I met her. She seemed great. I had some hesitancy because of bad roommates in the past, and I'd met some people before who seemed great, but then something felt off with the Holy Spirit kind of alerting me, no, that's not right. But this time it was like, okay, yeah, I think this is right. So she moved in just shortly. I think it was after the bathroom had just been finished. I had like barely moved back into the bedroom or something. I don't fully remember, but I know, I had to move out of the spare bedroom, put stuff away and reorganize things. So it was a lot going on at once. And that was another part of my hesitancy. It was like, this house is kind of chaotic right now. Does somebody want to move into this? But she was totally open for it. And even though it was like a lot of pressure on me at the time, I think it was good. It was a godsend, especially because of the finance as well. But I think it was just nice to have somebody move in with me and not be alone at the time.
Well, I don't think we were done with the kitchen quite yet either. So.
No, we weren't actually. Yeah.
So we had to get all that done beforehand.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, we kind of had to speed up things and get somebody to come do the countertops and stuff really quickly when we were kind of waiting.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, we got to finish this all now. We got to do all this.
And then I broke my wrist.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. That was crazy. Yeah, so talk a little bit about what happened there.
In doing the kitchen, we were kind of in a hurry, and I got a good friend who is in construction who agreed to help, who was a blessing, and came and we set up a day to get it all done in a day. And I ended up falling off the ladder and broke my wrist, and didn't know it was broken at the time, but it swelled all up. And so we still continued that day. I helped him with one hand, but he ended up doing most of the work himself. And we got it done. Yeah. So that was totally a lot at once. But then, she moves in, and then we find out shortly, I hear this like dripping on the ceiling, and I'm like, I think there's leakage. And so we have somebody, and they say, you need a new roof right now, and you need new gutters. And so that's a large chunk of money. So it was like, okay, I just paid for this other stuff, and now this is going on. And it was a godsend that Mom did that fundraiser. So my mom has a skincare brand, the Soaring Collection. It's all natural skincare, handcrafted soap. And so she had a fundraiser to sell soaps, and that was a huge help. My grandpa helped me out as well. My dad helped me out. And so, but it was just a lot at once, one thing after another, of large chunks of emergency fund, depleting. So what were your thoughts at the time? It was like, okay, 2 more things added to this list, and we have to trust in the Lord. Well, my overall plan when you bought this was, I think, a little bit different than yours or my outlook, because I've done this before with the condition that the property was in. I kind of had a feeling that we were going to need to do a new roof anyways. Yeah. So even though it was overwhelming for you, it was just, I felt God's timing. Yeah. Because again, with that, we ended up getting a very good price on it, finding a great contractor to do the work, and it needed to be done. Plus, it helped the overall value of the property, anyways. Yeah. And plus the gutters, I tried on the gutters to fix those over and over again, and that just didn't work.
Yeah. And it was, not only was there like some water coming because of the roof, the gutters were pouring over into the yard and flooding. And even I think at some point the lady next door was like, oh, what's all this water,
Yeah. And then that's another blessing because along with the bathroom, which we ended up getting the quotes. You got the quotes from the friend that helped with the cabinets, and he also referred the gutter guy.
Oh, yeah.
And the gutter ended up being probably half of the quotes that we got from other people.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So next we're going to be talking about all of the medical treatment that I started receiving after this. So around this time, I just started going to physical therapy, hand therapy, and a bunch of specialists. I was getting extremely tired of going from one doctor to the next, but I did it because it's what needed to happen. My physical therapist and hand therapist were literal lifesavers that God had put into my life. My strength started to gain, and I was able to get braces for almost everything. My fingers, my ankles, hips, shoulders, wrists, you name it. My hand therapist even taught me how to put my ribs back into place, which had been extremely painful up to this point. I think during this time it started to become a little more real for you, Dad. Is that true?
Yeah. Just seeing you in pain, and if a joint would pop out of place, and your ribs and your shoulders, it was real in that, because I'm always a fixer with the bathroom, the roof, any of that stuff. I could just fix it.
Yeah.
This I couldn't fix. So that was frustrating and kind of overwhelming. Although I wouldn't express that because it didn't do any good to show you those, how I was feeling or whatever. It's just to encourage you. Although I did know that basically, our family verses are Joshua 1:9 and that he commanded us where he commands us to go. He's going to be with us wherever we go. So that was it. And the verses in there too say not to look to the right or to the left, which would be taking our eyes off of him. And so that's what always helped me during this time. And verses in Corinthians where he doesn't give us any trial or temptation that he doesn't provide a way out for us either.
Yeah. I know that was hard, and I myself didn't know what was going on, what was going to happen. And I had a little bit more of a positive outlook at this point, but I was thankful you and Mom were encouraging to me and helpful and just kept telling me it was going to be okay. The Lord was in charge, and I knew it, but maybe not at the time fully had that in my mind. Even though I knew the Lord was in charge, I didn't have that constantly pushing itself into my mind. And there were moments where it was like, okay, this is difficult. What do I do? And so I was thankful for your guys' support and still your support. But, at the time I needed finger braces. And they told me how much they cost, and that was a fortune. I was told so they have custom braces, and they're called silver rings, and so I needed these custom fitted ones. And then I was told I needed thumb ones as well, and they basically need to get pre-authorization from the insurance, and then you can find out how much it costs. So they did that, and then I found out how much it was going to be, and it was like $800 just for two of them. So that was overwhelming because, I just paid for all this stuff, and I am told, I need more. That was just two, and I needed four, and so I need more braces, and it's like, okay, thankfully have a roommate, so that's another source of income in addition to my job. But it was just like, okay, another thing. But thankfully, Mom did another fundraiser, and that was helpful. But going through all of that, you didn't seem to become overwhelmed. As you just talked about, like you kind of kept that to yourself, but you constantly told me it was all going to work out. And I was just curious if when this additional thing was added, if that was overwhelming.
If it was just that, I think it would have been a lot harder. But God allowed certain other things. It always seems that when something comes up for you, a struggle or another trial, that something comes with your sister at the same time. It could be, I'm talking to you, your sister's calling on the other line, and then your uncle is calling on the other line. And at that point, it's like the enemy overdoes it. So that, you have to know that it's a trial with all of the stuff happening all at the same time. It couldn't just be happenstance, you know. And so that, I think, because of those things, make it a lot easier just to say, okay, God, only you could take care of it, because there's no way in the world I'm going to be able to do it. And it doesn't help to be overwhelmed. And it doesn't help to, I don't know, my dad never showed weakness. And even though I get emotional, I don't think that emotion shows weakness. But I think panic does. So I tried not to panic.
I think, I won't go too deeply into it out of respect for you and your brother. But at the time, when he had moved in, you guys were helping him out after surgery, I felt like, okay, all this stuff is going on. I don't want to like burden you guys. So I, try to fix certain things myself as best possible and not call you up too much, because I didn't want to stress you out more, only call you about things that I really had to call you about. But it was hard at the time, because it was like, okay, well, they have to focus on him. And at the same time, it's like, okay, I have to tell myself, like, I'm an adult and I have to, not that I wasn't thinking that way before, but, I just kind of kept to myself. But next, we're going to be talking about how my health started to go downward after physical therapy ended. So I can't go too deeply into this, but the stress of something particular was causing me to have more issues. At the end of each day, I would have pain all the way down. So from the top of my spine all the way down to the middle of my spine. And I would just feel completely exhausted and crawl into bed. I wasn't really doing that much, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do at the time. I just felt overwhelmed. I felt tired. I didn't feel like myself, even less than I had previously. And it was like, okay, what needs to be done? And I know you can't go too deeply into that, but what were your thoughts on seeing me so stressed? I would come over and just be drained and just kind of, lay down.
It's kind of just trying to distract, similar to when the first flood guy came. Get your eyes off of it, and then, we got to eliminate the stress, because a lot of these things were coming because of the stress that you had for different outside things that were very stressful. And then just focus you back on God, because God's the only one that had an answer through all of that.
So as I was talking about, I would come to your guys' house and kind of be crying and about everything that was going on. I've been praying, but as everything started to take a toll on my health, I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I was thankful for your guys' distractions and help and encouragement. But, it was a lot at the time. And then shortly after that, I started going to physical therapy again because of the pain that I was having in my neck. And so, starting from my neck and going down. And also I had a pain in my hips as well. And this was helping me a little bit, but not extremely, just because when you do exercises with your neck, kind of causes inflammation at sometimes, and then that's going into your head, and so it was causing some issues. But at the time, I had heard about another doctor. He had gone to a conference at Johns Hopkins and about EDS. He specialized in EDS, and it was like, okay, I finally got in, and we had an appointment set, and we went down to see him. He didn't say much. Like, I showed him all the papers and stuff from the previous specialist, and he didn't say much different information than the other doctor, besides the fact that he just said, like, oh, no, you don't have to stop doing everything, and it will be okay. But, like, he didn't give me really tips or information in that sense. And I was curious what your thoughts were on that visit, because I know we had gone to the other doctor before. This was also going down to Southern California again. And
yeah, I saw how you felt on that, and even though we talked on the trip back, I felt better after that doctor. Mm-hmm. For one thing, because he specializes in that, and he goes to worldwide meetings and trainings on EDS, and plus his daughter has it, who's in her 30s, I believe. Yeah. And so his was actual experiences, life experiences with somebody that was close to him. Yeah. And whereas when you went to that, prior to that, you were thinking, I can't do anything, basically. I have to just sit at home all day, and I can't do the things that I like doing. Yeah. Whereas he said, do whatever you want. Yeah. Although, there still are limitations because of your hands, that you can't do that, and certain things with your body that is just not beneficial, your ankles and things like that. But still, he was encouraging. Yeah. And then there was also follow-up. You had follow-up, and he gave you some other things to try out as well. So I was encouraged after that.
I think even though, he said you could do certain things, and I think at the time maybe I was like, oh, I'm fine. I can hike and I can do all this stuff, and realized, okay, I can't quite do what I was able to do before, but I don't have to sit around being afraid in my home, not doing anything at all, and being depressed. But in the follow-up, they told me, we think you have mast cell disorder, and that's why you're having certain pain and having, stomach issues. And they did put me on the medication. I had that allergic reaction to it. It was hard to breathe. And thankfully it wasn't like hospitalization or anything like that. But they put me on some other medications, and that's been extremely helpful in healing my stomach and me feeling a lot better. Like, I can't eat things with soy or dairy or gluten now. I couldn't have dairy since 7th grade, but with other things I used to be able to eat things with that. Now I can't do that. But in terms of eating in general, I can eat without feeling sick when I take those medicines, at least for the most part. But to wrap it up, I ended up moving on from my job at the time, and the Lord provided a new one in his perfect timing, which allowed me to take a break before I started the new job, which was good because I got a new concussion, which we'll be talking about next. Discussing my concussion, a quick backstory. I have had 7 concussions since high school, 2 of them being back-to-back in between these 2 jobs. So the job I had previously and the one I have now. And those happened both when I was vacuuming. So I hit my head. I was winding up the cord, and I hit my head, the front of my head, the way I was positioned, into the wall. And then the second one, I'm on the floor vacuuming with the hose, and the vacuum's kind of like a little bit behind me, and it jolts into the back and hits like where my spinal cord is, where the brain connects to the spine. And I immediately knew after both of them that I had concussion. And I started having the sharp pains into my face at the time, and thankfully, that's all gone now. But I'd gone to the hospital and trying to figure out what's going on, because it was painful and it was scary, and I didn't know what to do. I'd never had that before, even though I'd had concussions. I'd never had sharp pains into my face. And And so that was a little bit scary. And thankfully, my doctor, my general doctor that I've been seeing for a while, said I was going to be okay. And the physical therapist was able to help me with certain things. But it was like, wait, something new is added to my health concerns. When I called you to tell you I had another concussion, well, either one of those times, what were your thoughts?
Well, the one with the vacuum, I asked you what happened, and you said you dropped the vacuum on your head.
Yeah.
And so, I'm like, if it could happen, it's going to happen to you, because I think I asked you, how in the heck did you drop the vacuum on your head?
Yeah.
And so after you explained it with the hose, and that you were, I think, down on the ground, and it was actually you pulling on the hose pulled the rest of the vacuum that hit you in the head. So it was one more thing. But
yeah,
I mean, God's kind of prepared you through all of this. It's I don't think you're going to stop being tested.
Yeah.
It's just how is God going to grow you and build you in each situation? Because I think he's prepared you for just about everything. So.
Yeah. I mean, I was upset, not with God, but I was upset that I had done that. I was upset with myself. Because, like, I've had this many concussions. I've tried to be careful, and I got another one. But it's funny that you say, like, if it could happen to anybody, it could happen to me, because that's something that I'll joke about with my friends, is like, oh, of course this happened. Like, you know, if anything crazy happens, it happens in my life. So we're not that surprised. But, yeah.
That's the one thing I kind of wonder, though, because as a parent from the outside, just dealing with people that I don't know, do you ever feel that your friends or coworkers or whatever with the concussions, because it's, you know, saying, oh, I can't go to this, or I can't do that, I have a concussion.
Yeah.
Do you ever get the reaction of, oh, you already used that one before?
I think with people who don't know me that well, like maybe they're acquaintances, that is a little bit harder for me, because it's like, to an extent, it's like, to what extent do I explain things in maybe people even starting new relationships, new friendships, people not understanding, even things like when they hug me, it's like, no, they hug me really hard, or they hit me on the shoulder, or I don't know, whatever, they do something physically that they would do to, they shake my hand, and they're not thinking about it, and they just dislocated my fingers, or they just dislocated my shoulder or my neck. And I can't really go into details with them because they don't understand. And so that's the thing. But I think I have experience now, and I won't talk about where from, but just people not understanding that, or maybe not thinking like, oh, you have it under control, or not really understanding that I'm not making these things up. Like, these are real things. They're happening to me. And like, there's no positive something. There's not going to be something positive out of me getting hurt or me being sick. Like, that's not me being like, oh yay, like, look, I'm hurt, I'm sick, like, I'm just making this up all the time. Like, there would be no purpose for me to do that. But I think that there are people out there that do maybe think that of me, and that's not true. But it's like when you can't really convince somebody when they already have a thought in their mind about you. So thankfully, I did heal rather quickly from those concussions. I mean, a couple months, and I healed before I started the new job. I think that I was still tired, and, you know, it took a couple weeks, but thankfully I healed rather quickly. The pain went away. I stopped having the headaches, and I stopped having any residual issues. Now I'm completely fine, which is great, especially because I've had 7. And the more that you have, the worse that it can be and the longer it can be for the healing. And, the one that I had in high school was, 9 months before I had to be out of school, and then just sitting around doing nothing the whole time. And then when I finally was well enough to go back to school for like a couple months, maybe a month or something, thankfully I was still able to graduate and all of that, I still had post-concussion disorder for a while. And so praise God that didn't take that long for this one. But it doesn't make the experience more fun, but just thank God that it wasn't a long, drawn out thing.
Well, I'm just wondering what would you say to people that are watching your podcast that have EDS or that have had similar type health issues that continually occur? What encouragement would you be able to share?
Yeah, I think I would tell you that it's going to be okay. It may not seem like it, whether that be health issues or whether that be issues with your home, your family, a breakup, whatever that is. But just speaking directly to health issues, the Lord, He made you. He knitted you together in your mother's womb. And He knew that was going to happen. He knew that you were going to have those issues. But that's not because the Lord isn't sovereign or the Lord isn't good. He is good. He is sovereign. And it's all to bring you closer to Him. It's all for His glory. And just have hope. Look to Him. I think what's good about health issues, that sounds crazy to say because it's not a great thing to have health issues or diseases or autoimmune, any of that. It's not great to have EDS. But the good thing about it is it forces me and hopefully forces you to rely on the Lord. Like, you need Him. You can't have those days where you're like, oh, I'm fine today. No. And none of us are fine without the Lord, even for that day. But it kind of forces you to see that on a wider scale, to say, I need to rely on Him, or I can't get through the day. I need to rely on Him this moment. I need to rely on Him the next moment. I'm in pain right now. Okay, God, I'm at work. I'm in pain. How are we going to get through this? Just constantly praying and having to go to the Word, the living, breathing Word of God that's evident and truthful, and just go to that and say, okay, God, what are you doing in my life right now? And how can I rely on you? And it's hard. It's not easy, but thankfully God is good and there's a purpose for it all. And in the end, we will have new heavenly bodies, new names, and when we're glorified in heaven, and we won't have to deal with those things anymore. And it's all worth it. We'll get to spend eternity with Christ for those who love Him and are committed to Him. Thank you for coming on today. And just closing this off, I know we discussed flooding in my home, declining health, my concussion, stress, and my crazy life. Thank the Lord He's been with me through every single moment. Now that we have caught up with each other, I will be having guests on this show who have experienced trials and tribulations as well, but see how the Lord has worked in their lives, and we'll be discussing through those things. What the tagline that the Lord has given is ordinary people doing extraordinary things in the midst of chaos. Subscribe for new episodes every other week. Peace out, Girl Scouts.